And welcome to Counsel of the Day with Shanrae. And I am Shanrae. So good to this, guys. We are on week 4 already. Hey, CJ, how are you? Good evening, everybody. We are on week 4 already. We got one more week left of Counsel of the Day with Shanrae for the month of August. This is our third quarter of 2023. And this week, Tuesday and Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be talking about, of course, Mr. Bean's disorder from his movie Man vs. Bee, Hyperfocus disorder. But this week's subtitle is dealing with romantic relationships and having this. All right. So before I get started, let me start with my website disclaimer. And I'm going to move this along. All right. So please be aware that due to the nature of the technology I'm using, there can be no assurance of confidentiality when using this online service. Should also be noted that due to changes in policies, all replies that will be used as advisory and informational only and will not constitute an official determination. Information provided by me are subject to limitations of current and available material, but the final responsibility for successfully achieving a goal rests with you. Information online is designed to be helpful. However, this information changes frequently, and it is recommended that you consult another physician, specialist, and or religious leader to aid you in your overall behavioral wellness. All right. So I'm a degree counselor, and I've let me move this along. I acquired my degrees from a dual degree from Ashford University, and my main degree is psychology. My second is organizational management. My great passion is bringing healing to people who have been through traumatic or stressful experiences. And when human beings experience trauma or severe life stressors, it is not uncommon for their lives to seem like it's unraveling. I help clients who include children, adults, and family members to find healthy perceptions of themselves and to strengthen their relationships, so that they can know themselves as peaceful, as complete, whole, and safe. All right. So I am a Christian counselor. And let me move this along. This has been my scripture for the month. And I'm actually going to wind up using this for my final quarter in November, this same scripture, because this really speaks volumes. I'm going to magnify this, and then I'm going to go on and close it out. Minimize it, I should say. So it's from Ephesians chapter 4, verse 23, and it's the New International Version of it. And it says to be made new in the attitude of your mind. And you can look that up on your own, but I want to go on and get started because 30 minutes is going to go by very, very quickly. So my key points for tonight, and this is an open platform, so feel free to ask questions, or if you want to share some life scenarios, I will stop and pause and give highlight to you and to what you're asking or what you're willing to share. Okay, the key points for tonight are: number 1, coping with ADHD and hyperfocus or hyperfocus disorder in romantic relationships. Number 2 is symptoms that can cause relationship problems. Number 3 is relationship challenges related to ADHD hyperfocus disorder. Number 4 is ADHD treatment that may improve relationships. And number 5 is advice for partners. Okay, so let's move this along. I'm going to actually start out, do something a little different. And as you can see, let me magnify this. This is what really encouraged me to really talk and highlight and bring attention to hyperfocus disorder. Was watching this very, very comedic movie on Netflix, Mr. Bean's Man versus B, excuse me. And he represented in such a comedic way someone with extreme hyperfocus disorder. If you ever get a chance, watch it. It is very funny. All right, let's start. I'm starting out with a quote this evening, and possibly I'm going to do the same quote on Thursday night. And this quote is by Mr. Myron Golden. Mr. Myron Golden is a multi-millionaire, self-made millionaire, and he's also a Christian believer. But he's a very wise man. I love the things that he says. He has a beautiful, wonderful books out there, helpful books. And then he also, if you look him up on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about. But Mr. Myron Golden says that ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus disorder is really what he calls ECA, which is extra creation ability. Extra creation ability. And y'all know last week I showed like about 16 different superstars or mega stars or celebrities who have the diagnosis of ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, hyperfocus, and I'm talking even all the way through to Jim Carrey, Michael Jordan, all kinds of Michael Phelps, so many different well-known celebrities that have what Myron Golden calls extra creation ability, okay? AKA ADHD, ADD, hyperfocus disorder. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to start out tonight with coping with ADHD, hyperfocus, in romantic relationships. Now, this theory is by Dr. Keith Lowe. He's a therapist and clinical scientist with the Carolina Institute for Developmental Disabilities at the University of North Carolina. And Dr. Lowe specializes in the treatment of ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus, that type of thing. All right. This was also medically reviewed by Shaheem Lacan. So I have been doing a lot of this. I've been really sticking to his theory for the month because he really specializes in this. Now, he starts out by saying in a marriage where one partner has ADHD, ADD, hyperfocus disorder, it is not uncommon for both spouses to be unaware that the condition is contributing to maybe the problems that they're having in their relationship. And then we know that relationship, there's going to be some type of problem or here and there. I'm not saying it should be all the time, but you're going to experience some kind of, you're going to bump heads at some time. But with someone with this type of disorder, it may create extra friction between the two. So these are some of the symptoms here that can cause some relationship issues with someone that may have this disorder. And it says the symptoms of ADD, hyperfocus in adults are similar to childhood symptoms, which include inattention, distractibility, anxiety, taking longer to get things done, problems with time management, and being scattered, forgetful, and also procrastinate. So ADHD, ADD, hyperfocus symptoms, they do not develop in adulthood. Rather, they persist in adulthood. Symptoms tend to escalate as a person's environment becomes more stressful and as the demands of their life increase. So symptoms of adult hyperfocus, ADHD, ADD may have an effect on a relationship, which include, now, it was something that was said in here, symptoms tend to escalate as a person's environment becomes more stressful. And I want y'all to remember this right here, how the symptoms tend to escalate as an environment becomes more stressful. And so now we're going to talk about what's causing the stress in the environment. Number one, maybe the person with the disorder is always being on the go and unable to sit still. That's that hypertensive behavior. They're disorganized. They're fatigued a lot. That's that ADD, where it seems like they're fatigued all the time. Impulsivity, that's what both of them, all three of them, excuse me, ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus. Inattentiveness, Okay. A lack of focus, losing things, not paying attention, like always losing keys, important, stuff like that. Losing your earbuds, losing your phone, losing stuff all the time. A lack of focus, not paying attention to details, poor thing, what is it? Poor motivation, uh, poor time management, restlessness, seeming like they're not listening to you, talking excessively and interrupting other people constantly, and in trouble following instructions. So Dr. Goodman says the ADHD hyperfocus it is highly genetic. Now, as a former teacher, a retired teacher, hey Helen, how are you? Good to see you, Helen. He talks about how this is highly genetic, just no different than diabetes, no different than other type of things like MS or something like that. Certain things, blood diseases, leukemia, stuff like that. Different things are genetic. So some adults are only diagnosed. A lot of the times they are diagnosed only after their children are evaluated and diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus, that type of way. So when parents start to learn more about the condition, because of their children's diagnosis, they may recognize the same traits in themselves, which can be a relief to them finally understanding and putting a name to what maybe they've been experiencing their entire life. So with me, like I was saying earlier, great evening to you, Helen. Like I was saying, with me being a former teacher, when my specialty was SPED, MOID, and I taught middle schoolers. A lot of the times when we had the parent teacher conferences, if we had to contact the parents, those type of things, we recognize, us teachers, we recognized that the parents also had the same traits as the children. A lot of times the parents were undiagnosed. They did not recognize, or if they did, they never acknowledged the fact that this may be genetic, or it is genetic. And it was difficult for the parents to help their children because they did have the same symptoms. And so it was, and of course we could never, we couldn't blade out, we couldn't say to a parent, maybe you should consider, being going and looking into, we couldn't do that. That's something they would have to choose to do on their own. But it was very difficult for a parent to help their child when they too were experiencing these symptoms and they did not know how to deal and handle with these as well. Now I'm going to move this along. So the recap here that Dr. Hammond was saying, excuse me, I think I said the wrong name. No, Dr. Goodman. The recap says that many of the symptoms of adult ADHD hyperfocus are misinterpreted. So getting an accurate diagnosis can help adults and family members better understand many of the behaviors that may be caused by the condition. That's if they choose to get the diagnosis. Now let's talk about relationship challenges related to ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus. And again, y'all can chime in whenever you want to. We can stop, I'll pause and ask questions, or if you want to share a scenario. So there are a number of common relationship problems and patterns that emerge when one partner has diagnosed or undiagnosed symptoms. Conflict. Number one is conflict. And let me move this on. I'm just talking and not moving this along. Hold on. There we go. Conflict. The partner who doesn't have ADHD, ADD, or hyperfocus may feel like that they have to nag their partners endlessly to ensure that things get done, which can lead to feelings of anger, feelings of shame, and resentment, particularly when it becomes a habit. Now, again, this happens a lot of times in a relationship period, whether a person has a diagnosis or not. So with this, maybe you know, in a partnership with, or marriage, or in a relationship with someone who may have these symptoms, it's gonna seem like it's like on 10 all the time, on a 10 all the time. Because of course, the person who you have to remind stuff to, they're frustrated because they feel like, well, I'm not a child. But the person who has to remind the person is like, why are you acting like a child? Why am I put in a position where I have to remind you to be responsible or accountable? So conflict is number one. Number two is emotional outburst. People who have these diagnoses, they may sometimes have difficulty managing their emotions, which that is true. This can contribute to situations where people experience strong bursts of emotions that can appear as irritability, angry outbursts, or rudeness. Okay, and I'm going to add another thing. Hi Benjamin, how you doing? It's so good to see you. I'm going to add to this. Not only irritability, angry outbursts, or rudeness, defensiveness. They feel like that they're on the defense all the time because of what's going on. And we're going to move this along. So number three is forgetfulness. A partner with these symptoms may forget important information like birthdays, appointments, and requests that their partner has made. Okay, so number four is impulsivity. Someone with ADHD or these symptoms may say that things without thinking, may say things that seem like they have no filter. So they may say things without thinking them through, which may lead to arguments or hurt feelings. Impulsivity can also contribute to reckless behavior, yes, or irresponsible decisions that create conflict in relationships. Yes, which that is very dangerous when you make decisions or you just jump up and do things without thinking it through. And then and you're not realizing how it's not only just affecting you, but it's affecting everyone that's attached to you. Number five, is misunderstandings. So undiagnosed ADHD, ADD, hyperfocus disorder, people with these diagnoses make it more difficult for people in relationships to understand one another. Impulsivity may be misinterpreted as reckless, while inattention might be mistaken for indifference. Number six is trouble finishing their task. So people with these diagnoses often struggle to start and finish tasks, which means that it can feel like the partner without the diagnosis is carrying the burden, okay, of household chores, etc. This often leads to feelings of resentment. Okay, so now let's move on to our ADHD, ADD, hyperfocus treatment that may improve the relationships. But before we go to that, trouble finishing tasks. When a person is undiagnosed, or they may be actually be diagnosed, but they choose not to take the treatment that's available to them, it does become a burden on the person who they're attached to, because then it's like, okay, now you're choosing, you know that there's an issue. You know that there's something that's keeping you from being the best version of that you can be, and then you refuse to work on what needs to be worked on, which presents a huge issue for the people that you're attached to. All of the burden, it seems like it is being put on the person without the diagnosis, because they're the person that has to be more responsible if they're attached to you. And so it does become a very imbalanced situation. It becomes a situation where the other person really does start to lose respect and even love for that individual, because then if they know what's going on, but you choose not to take treatment or to accept the treatment, then that's actually the beginning of the end of the relationship. Well, we're going to move on. Let's talk about the treatment that may, and I like the way the doctor says this. Dr. Goodman says treatment that may improve the relationship, because sometimes things are taken so far, are been done so far until there's like nothing, you can't bring it back. Hey, Tanya, how you doing? So good. Hey, Tanya. So ADHD, hyperfocus, ADD treatment may improve this relationship. Getting treatment for adult ADD, hyperfocus, ADHD can be helpful for improving relationships because it may help alleviate some of the symptoms of this diagnosis. And they're less likely to negatively affect your relationship. So if the that spouse or that person in a relationship is receptive, if they're receptive to the diagnosis and to the treatment, functionality typically improves fairly dramatically. You start to see a dramatic improvement. Dr. Goldman says treatment can be an eye opener. It can help someone learn to manage the condition more effectively. But not all adults who have this diagnosis are open to treatment, and this can be frustrating. Oh no, it is. It will be frustrating for the spouse who sees that the treatment of this treatment as a means to improve not only the person that they're connected to and that they love, but to also improve their relationship. So treatment, I'm sorry, hold on. There was a gnat. Okay. Treatment for adult ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus it typically includes medication, skills training, psychotherapy, and psychoeducation. So this can be frustrating for a spouse who sees ADHD treatment as a means. Oh wait a minute, I just skipped. Okay, treatment recommendations may vary depending on the individual's needs as well as the nature and severity of their symptoms. Now, remember, a lot of times these diagnoses come in multiples. It's very rarely just one thing. Like we're talking about here, ADD or ADHD coupled with hyperfocus. But ADD and ADHD it can also be coupled with OCD. It could be also coupled with some other type of diagnosis. So this is why Dr. Goodman was saying this. All right. So number one, medications, stimulants, as well as some other non-stimulant medications may be helpful for managing the symptoms of these diagnoses. And these medications affect chemicals in your brain known as neurotransmitters. Okay, which may be helpful for improving your symptoms. And I'm going to go as far as saying not may, it does. Research has proved that it does because I told y'all 2 out of 3 of my babies, my children, were diagnosed with ADD, not ADHD, ADD. And when they were when they started receiving their medicinal treatments, what it did is the part of the brain that was underdeveloped, it kicked in and it caused development in that part of the brain. And I mean, it just kicked in and it was like, woo, those babies, my 2 babies, they did not miss a beat when they started their medicinal treatment. I mean, it was, I remember one of my babies said, ooh, I remember everything now. I said, that was so funny. They said, I remember everything now, Mama. I said, oh, that was so cute. All right. 2, skills training. That's that CBT, that cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay. Skills training. Skills training involves helping people develop strategies that they can use to manage their symptoms more effectively. Number 3 is psychotherapy, which is different types of psychotherapy, such as a cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, that both, like I just said, CBT, and family therapy, that is very important. The family therapy can be helpful. CBT focuses on changing negative thought patterns that may affect symptoms or relationships, while family therapy can help loved ones learn more about what they can do to help. All right. Number 4 is psychoeducation. So learning more about ADHD, ADD, hyperfocus can help people with the condition better understand how it affects their behavior. It can also help families learn more about how to support their loved ones. Okay. So the larger challenge, and this is what Dr. David Goodman says here, and this is his quote: the larger challenge for the non-ADD or ADHD hyperfocused spouse is when their partner has never received evaluation or treatment and they're prejudiced against psychiatry, or has had no exposure to psychiatry and is reluctant or afraid of being labeled or afraid of having to take medication. So I'm going to say this again. The larger challenge for the non-diagnosed spouse is when their partner has never received an evaluation or treatment, and or is prejudiced against psychiatry, or has had no exposure to psychiatry, and is reluctant or afraid of being labeled or afraid of having to take medication. Now, I'm going to ask a question here for those that are watching, and then you can put your answer in the comments, and I'll answer it later on. The question here is, and I'm just being real, should the person, should the spouse without the diagnosis, how long do you think they should stay in, or they should stay in a relationship with a partner who has this diagnosis and refuse to get help and refuse to do what they're supposed to do? And you can put this in the comments. How long do you think they should just hang in there for the long run, or do you think that it's a lost cause? That's the question that I'm posing right here. And this is after what Dr. Goodman talked about, the larger challenge, because what he's seen, what I've seen in therapy for the person without the diagnosis, it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge for the partner who's with somebody who refuses to help themselves. So the question again, should they stay in the relationship with that person? Or if they do, how much time do you think they should give them by staying with them? Okay, that's the question with this one. So I'm going to move this along. It says, if a parent with these diagnoses as a child and who is receiving treatment, the dramatic improvement seen in their child can have an effect on the adult's perceptions. And he reiterated this. When Dr. Goodman encounters reluctant patients, he takes a let's just sit down and talk approach with them. He said if a medication is indicated, Dr. Goodman encourages the patient to try it for a month or two. If the person does not see any improvement or doesn't like how they function on the medication, they can choose to discontinue the treatment. And this is the approach that Dr. Goodman takes. Now, this approach gives the patient a feeling of control. For some people, there's anxiety or worry about losing control. They might resist treatment to maintain the sense that they are in control. And there are a number of effective treatments available that can help with these symptoms, okay? Of course, we said medication therapy, skill training, and education. And all of these go hand in hand. You're going to get basically all of these things when you first go in and you accept treatment. All of these 4 things are going to happen. You're going to get your medication, your therapy, your skill training, and your education on it. All of this is going to help better the situation and better the person, so they can function almost at 100% at their highest level. Now, I want to pause here because there's something that Myron Golden said that really stuck out to me. I listened to his teachings a lot because he's a very, very successful, very, very accomplished, very, very wise man. Okay, and he's older, and so he's lived a long time as well, and so he can share things that he's experienced in his lifetime. He said something that stuck out to me. He said people get divorced because one or more of the people in a relationship stop being thankful for the other person. And he said this is one of the main reasons why people get divorced, because one or maybe both of the people in a relationship, they literally stop being thankful for the other person. And that's true. It's correct. When a person, I'm just going to say, period. If a person gets comfortable, like what we're talking about now, one with a diagnosis, if you're okay with your life being the way you are, you feel like you don't need any treatment, any medication, anything else, and then you're seeing the negative effects of how you're living. If you see the negative effects, how it's affecting you and your family, and you still continue to to say I'm okay, I'm okay, it's working for me. This is classic right here. This is classic what Myron Golden is saying. How this is one of the main reasons why people choose to divorce, because that non-diagnosed person, they realize that whoever that they're married to has clearly stopped being thankful. Stop being thankful for them. You know, marriage period, relationship period is an investment. And it's an investment. You're choosing to invest, to love with each other, to hang in there. When you marry, it says for richer, for poor, for health or sickness, to death do us part. That's an investment. Oh, you're supposed to be the closest people to each other. And if you see that you're inflicting pain, and there's something that you can do to help it, but you choose not to do it, you're literally showing that you're not thankful, for who you're with. And so, hey, going back to the question that I asked, should a person stay with someone who has this diagnosis, knows that they have it, and they refuse treatment, and they refuse to take the steps to do things to make things easier on them, or they choose to continue to be a burden? How much time do you think someone should give someone like that? Should they keep trying, or should they just wrap it, just, hey, that's it? So that's the question I'm posing. That's number one. Let's move on. Dr. Goodman says, find tools that will help you stay organized. Oh, hold on. Did I miss something? He says, find tools that will help you stay organized. In daily life, getting a planner, making checklists, setting reminders on your phone can be useful when it comes to managing daily tasks and household chores. Set aside 15 to 20 minutes at a time where you can work on checking items off of your daily list. Now, what I'm going to say with this, finding tools that help you stay organized. It's not going to help if you set an alarm and then you forget, and when the alarm goes off, you forget why you set the alarm. So whatever you do, the alarm that you set, it needs to be detailed. It needs to have the notes. It needs to have a note attached to it, and set several alarms back to back, where to keep going on 5-10 minutes until you do it. Make the note. Make a note in there that says, say your name, Shanrae. Remember, you have to check the mail, or you have to pick up the children at this time. If you set the alarm, make sure you set the alarm 30 minutes or an hour beforehand. Make sure you set several alarms that will go off. And then say to yourself, do it now. Don't wait. Do it now. If you have to set an alarm, take the trash out. Or pick something that your spouse may have asked you to do. Or I'm going to the grocery store and she gave me a list, and to do this. Set alarms to help yourself, to help make things easier. Okay, it says divide up household tasks with your partner. We already know that. I'm not even going to talk more about that. There's a recap that Dr. Goldman says. Treatment is important for people with these diagnoses, but there are also steps that you can take to deal with problems related to lack of focus and poor time management. Organizational strategies, task planning, and reducing distractions can help. So these are some advice that Dr. Goldman has given for partners. It says if your partner has any of these diagnoses, there are also things that you can do to deal with some of the challenges that you might face as a couple. Again, we don't want to get to the point where we feel like, where you feel like in your relationship that the person has stopped being thankful for you. You don't want to get to that point. You don't want your spouse without the diagnosis to start thinking that they're not thankful for you. Okay, so everybody has to do their part in here. So he said, number one, learn about the diagnosis. Okay, well, of course, the person without the diagnosis is going to automatically learn about the diagnosis, because if you love your spouse, if you love who you with, you're going to want to know what's going on with them and how maybe you can help. How can we help them be the best that they can be? Learning more about the diagnosis can affect your partner and the relationship. Which is a good place to start, Dr. Goodman says. It could be helpful we know it is. This is another thing that Dr. Goodman says. He says the spouse without the diagnosis may assume that their partner is maybe being passive aggressive when they're late, when they are procrastinating, or they're forgetful. And he says it may look like that partner with the diagnosis is unmotivated to change, or they're trying to annoy you. When in fact, he says that the person with the diagnosis is impaired and unable to perform at their required level. Okay, so we know that. So we're going to go back to the first question that I asked. Okay, if the person is diagnosed, they find out their diagnosis, and they realize that this is maybe what's impairing them from being the best person that they can be. The question is again, how much patience do you think a person should give that person? Because we understand the impairment. And with this, what I'm talking about, hyperfocus, ADD, ADHD, what I'm talking about here, these things are fixable. I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm going to say it. These are there's treatments that can fix this situation. If it's something that's not fixable, where someone has a brain injury for real, like they were in a bad accident, and their brain was totally damaged, certain things are not treatable or not fixable. This is fixable here. Okay, once you realize, okay, this is what maybe causing the person to be forgetful, whatever. How much grace do you think you should give the partner? And you can put your answers in the comment or later, now or later. How much grace do you think should be extended to the partner? Because again, we're going to talk about manipulation. Manipulation is a big part of people who are diagnosed with certain things. A lot of times they learn how to use manipulation tools to work for them and work in there. Oh, I have, this, that, and the other. And we're talking about, I keep saying I'm a glass full type of person. I look at the glass halfway full. So I know that we can overcome anything if we put the work in. How much grace do you think should be given to a person who realizes that there is a diagnosis there, genetic wise, whatever like that? Okay, how much grace do you think you should give the person that you're in a relationship with? All right. So, says your partner's problematic behavior may be a function of inability and impairment rather than a lack of motivation. So you may find that you're less frustrated once you have this understanding. Number 2, offer encouragement. Let your partner know that they have your support. Praise and encourage them when they make progress towards a goal. People who have these diagnoses may struggle with feelings of discouragement or shame as a result of their symptoms. So being positive and supportive can help them feel more motivated and optimistic. Number 3, do not parent your partner. Easier said than done, right? Okay, do not parent your partner. Dr. Goodman says sometimes people fall into a pattern where the partner who doesn't have the diagnosis develop a parent-child dynamic with their partner who does have the diagnosis. Instead of allowing their partner to take on responsibilities, they may take over all of the household and personal tasks and treat their partner much like a dependent. Now, let's be fair here. It depends on what the person, the non-diagnosed spouse, has experienced with the person. Sometimes some things are so detrimental. From my experience with therapy and going through, sometimes people experience such detrimental things until that person is functioning on a more responsible level. They can't trust that person with these major responsibilities, especially if there are children involved. So it's easier said than done. It seems like you're being parented like people. I've heard people saying, I'm not a child. Don't treat me like a child. Well, the person without the diagnosis may be saying, well, stop acting like a child then and show more responsibility and more accountability, which is that conflict and all of that. It's got to be progress from the person with the diagnosis. There's got to be some progress, especially if you have someone that's willing to stick in there, hang in there with you and work with you. Has to be progress on the person with the diagnosis, their behalf. You cannot continue to function the same way and then think that you're going to get the respect that you feel you want to get you know, and that you feel you deserve, if there's constant conflict and stuff being instilled. This is a tough situation here. I'm talking about now people who are like prejudiced against treatment and everything. You have to think about, you know, how much do you value the relationship that you're in? How much do you value it? You know, because your actions is going to show how much you value the person that you're with. Okay, so this type of imbalanced relationship can lead to resentment. One partner feels that they're doing everything, and the other feels like they're being unfairly controlled. So instead of trying to do everything for your partner, this is what Dr. Goodman says: focus on your own actions. Again, this is it comes down to the relationship. If you have children and they're hey, some things are more detrimental than others. Okay, so that's a touch and go. I agree, but I don't agree with Dr. Goodman there, because different people's lives are consistent and based around different things, and you cannot jeopardize your livelihood. You can't jeopardize your family. You can't jeopardize your household, certain things, if the person with the diagnosis has displayed severe irresponsible behaviors. Number 4 says work on communication. I'm going to skip over this because, again, a lot of times people with these type of diagnosis, it's very hard for them to communicate and to actually express what they're feeling communication wise. And again, and then also with the processing, as a lot of times it's hard for them to understand the things that you're trying to communicate to them because of the diagnosis or what they genetically may have. So again, treatment is the key, especially when there is treatment available for the diagnosis. If there's no treatment, if there's nothing that can help the diagnosis, that's one thing. But if there's treatment available for the diagnosis, I mean, I know that everything is scary. Things that you're not used to, it scares you. It scares everybody. Something that you're not accustomed to is automatically going to scare you. But if there's treatment out there, rather than being labeled a different type of way, like I shared with y'all 2 weeks ago and last week, my grandmother, who passed at 96 years old, she died 2 years ago. When I shared with her about 2 of my babies that was diagnosed with ADD, she said to me, she said, thank God there's a name to it now. Thank God there's a diagnosis. She said, because when she was a child growing up, she said, our people, our culture, they just labeled them who may have had these same genetic symptoms. She said they labeled them as dumb. And she said they were some of the most brilliant people out there. But it's just that it was just a slight thing. That's it. So again, if there is treatment out there, I would rather have the treatment than be labeled a different type of way. Especially if there's something that can help. No different than someone who's, I have a diagnosis, an autoimmune disorder. I'm not gonna shy away from taking a medication because I'm a Christian. Yeah, Christians have faith in God and God will heal. Yes, he does. Sometimes he heals through medication. And I'm a witness. I thank God for the medication that I take because it's keeping me alive. It's keeping me healthy. It's keeping me to where I can actually function. If I don't take the medication, I won't be functional. I'll be hospitalized and then I can actually die. So, I mean, treatment comes in different ways. And that would be unfair to my spouse. If I kept saying, oh, I'm just going to have faith in God, and I'm not going to take the treatment. That would be unfair to my spouse because I would not be functional. It would be a hard burden on him. Wouldn't be able to get around. He would have to do that. That would be unfair to him. It would be unfair to my grown children. Every time they come around, they see their mama bedridden. No. So, I can talk about, even it's a different diagnosis, but I've still been diagnosed. And what I've been diagnosed with, it can impair the quality of my life if I don't take the treatment. Same difference with this. A diagnosis is a diagnosis. If there's treatment, if there's something that can help you function and be the best person that you can be, I'm telling you, don't shy away from it. Get the treatment. Find out what works for you. Get the treatment and be the best person you can be. Okay, let's move this along because I've been forgetting to move. Let's move this along right here. Okay. Advice for, okay, now let's talk about ADA ADDA plus community. Again, I have been so elated when I did my research and found out that there is an online support group for people that have ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus, OCD, or dyslexia. There's a community you can join, be a part of them. That's you know, y'all sit down and share tools that can help each other, different strategies, different techniques. You can even talk and confide about how you feel about whatever. I am excited about ADA Plus community. This community is a free online support group for those that have ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus, dyslexia, those type of things, OCD, those type of things. All right, so I'm going to give you the takeaway. This is the takeaway. And this is a word from Very Well. The larger challenge for the non-diagnosed spouse is when their partner has never received evaluation or treatment. It's prejudiced against psychiatry or has had no exposure to psychiatry and is reluctant or afraid of being labeled or afraid of having to take medication. Even if your spouse with this diagnosis is not ready to seek treatment, you can still get help for yourself. A trained mental health professional can help you better understand your spouse's symptoms and then give you the tools that you need to cope in a healthy way. Which you can decide what you're going to do in this situation. Let me move on to the quote right here. Okay. The quote says, you don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. And this is by Dan Millman. Now, I talked about Learning RX last week, and I want to show you, I wanted to show y'all Learning RX. Okay. I stand by Learning RX. It says, if you want to become a better learner and thinker, you might consider adult tutoring. Another great option is brain training. In fact, if you're looking to work on your learning, thinking skills, brain training is the perfect fit for your goals. Brain training offers a way to strengthen thinking skills. Rather than delivering information, brain training focuses on strengthening your cognitive ability or your cognitive skills. With brain training, you can get targeted skills like concentration, memory, and processing your speed to become a stronger, more confident thinker. So thousands of adults and clients have strengthened these skills with Learning RX. Between 2010 and 2021, more than 2,622 adults graduated from Learning RX programs. The average graduate improved their IQ by 13 points. Oh my goodness. And during this period, and made significant gains in skills like working memory, long-term memory, and their attention. All right. So I stand by Learning RX. I know what it can do. It's not just for people with diagnosis. It's also a lot of judges, doctors, politicians, a lot of corporate America people. They go and they invest in themselves by getting with Learning RX to help keep their mind strong and functioning. All right, let's talk about BetterHelp. All right, BetterHelp, if you want a safe space to speak with a licensed professional online, BetterHelp offers affordable counseling sessions for individuals, couples, and family members. All you have to do is go to www.betterhelp.com. All right, listen, 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline. If you know someone that if you've ever in a situation where someone may be may feel like that they're struggling, call 988, and there are people that are readily 24/7, and they can talk with them and they can express themselves and they can get what they're thinking off their chest, and then they will help them strategize and help them realize that their life is worth living. All right, so let's move this along. I'm going to open this up for my fellow counselors and theorists. This is my theory website reference page. This is where I got my teachings from. All right. So if there's a past Counsel of the Day with Shanrae series that you missed or you just want to rewatch, you can go to my YouTube channel at Shanrae Price. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for the notifications, and then select any past series that you want to rewatch. All right. And you all know that I am a counselor. Now, listen. Let me read this first. If you're interested in professional one-on-one counseling services with me, feel free to contact me via Facebook Messenger at Shanrae Owens or via my email at shanrae.price@gmail.com. I'm a lifestyle strategist, and my aim is to aid you in your life's goals and your life's dreams. Listen, I do emergency calls. You can contact me via Facebook Messenger. You can call me. That way, once we get all the business out of the way, I'm affordable. I do 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes. I can do up to 2 hours. I do readily. If you need to work through something, strategize through something, we don't have to do a long-term contract. I've done these emergency sessions down through the years. I'm available. I'm not locked into a contract where I have to see you for 3 months or anything like that. Because I understand sometimes some person may just need to work through something right then and there. I do quick emergency calls. Like I said, 15 minutes. I don't do no less than 15 minutes because you can't hardly get anything out in 15 minutes. But I will do 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45, 60 minutes, like that. And I'm affordable. Contact me if you ever just need to walk through anything like that. Contact me through my Facebook Messenger at Shanrae Owens, because we can talk. We can do a video call. We can do audio. It doesn't matter. I'm available. Now, I will see y'all on Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I ran over. Good Lord, did I run over? Thank you so much for everything. I'll see you Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a good evening. This has been Counsel of the Day with Shanrae. Y'all can answer those questions in the comments, and I will review them, and I'll get back to you before Thursday. Have a good evening, guys.